Jayalalithaa took a very conscious decision of not allowing RSS to spread their ground. I think when you are questioning hijab wearing children to come to school, running shakas in school campuses is what we have to stop right now. But let me tell you, this hijab issue has been there for some time. It
Yeah.
has happened across years. When I was there, also it happened. And there is an elected government sitting and watching it and having fun when these things are happening. The idea of India and the people who don't like the idea of India.
Hi. We've been joined by a very special guest today to talk about the genesis and sustenance of communalization. We're going to be looking at two states, particularly Karnataka and the neighboring state of Tamil Nadu. And my guest to discuss the nuances of this is Mr. Sasikanth Senthil. For those who are not familiar with his work, he's a former IAS officer who served for over a decade before stepping down in 2019. And this was in the backdrop of the protests against the CAA and NRC across the country. At the time of his resignation, he had gone on record and had said that he is doing so because democracy's fundamental building blocks are being violated in an unprecedented way. A year later, in 2020, he joined the Congress party. And in this conversation, it's very relevant to mention where his last posting was. He was in Dakshina Kannada district of Karnataka, where he up close saw and observed what kind of communalization process was taking place. And in the backdrop of the hijab row that we are witnessing now, it becomes that much more relevant. Thank you so much for taking time out and joining us today. Interestingly, now we are seeing, I mean, if I may just ask for your opinion of or your observations of the hijab row that we're seeing, because that is in news right now. We see more and more youngsters, between the age groups of, say, 17 to 20, speaking the same kind of language that a lot of right wing organizations have been speaking. What are your views on that?
Yeah. Now, this is something which is visually very very bad to see that the young children of our schools have started doing this. But let me tell you, this hijab issue has been there for some time. It
Yeah.
has happened across years. When I was there, also it happened. It happened in a particular school, and then the issue was raised up by the community, and then I had called both of them and I had explained the constitutional position, and that matters got settled in the school itself. Even now, if you go to coastal Karnataka, there is a lot of places. Hijab is a very normal thing there. When the Islam community, hijab is an accepted, and it's also considered holy as mandated by Quran. And anybody who accepts hijab, they accept it wholeheartedly. It is not something just thrusted on them. So seeing hijab as something which is oppressive to the women is something absolutely nonsense. And now in this situation, what has happened? Two things have happened. One is that this problem was fueled and led to burn by the government, because when this matter happened, I got to know that the current district administration had referred the matter to the government, and the government would have instructed the deputy commissioner to solve it within the school. It's a very minor issue. In Dakshin Kannada, this is not a major thing. It could have got solved easily within the school itself. But rather, government kept that entire thing for 3 to 4 days, waited upon it, and then issued an order to maintain status quo, which is an which is an arbitrary order. Because in Dakshin Kannada or in coastal Karnataka, there is one place which follows hijab, which allows hijab, another place somebody doesn't allow hijab. So there is no universality in this issue. And when they said status quo, then this whole thing started, and in my opinion, the government had deliberately allowed this to blow up. There is even now we don't see any sort of force from the government to stop it from going to the children and getting or preventing this issue to overpower our children. And we also see scenes of principals and teachers stopping children on the school gate. I think it is an atrocious act and completely against the fundamental rights, completely against the country's ethos. And there is an elected government sitting and watching it and having fun when these things are happening. So this is 100% done by the government, in my opinion, where they have completely let the fire burn. And having worked there, I know that prompt response and unbiased response is something which prevents communal things. It is only a communal government which will try to force its way by fueling when these issues happen, and that's what exactly has happened. And coming to the children part, the RSS has been developing shakas there. It has been always a case, but this influence has reached the children in the schools. There is no second thought about it because the shakas operate in every school premises in Karnataka. But I would rather want to believe none of these children have that communal feeling. They might have got into this organization, they might go to their drills and desh bhakti and whatever they say, but I don't think the children have got it into their mind. They have been simply doing it. From whatever I inquired from Shimoga and other places, it was more of fun for them, bunking classes and doing ruckus and joining this all. So, but it will only take a matter of time for them to completely transform the other side. But we still have time. But if a government is allowing this to happen and enjoying that, then I have very little hopes.
I want to start with what you saw in an article that you've recently written. You spoke about your observations from your time in Dakshina Kannada district. So let's start with what were your key takeaways on how you saw the ecosystem function in Dakshina Kannada.
So anybody who has been spent little time in that place will realize that the major chunk of people are not having any communal feelings as such. The guys who sort of initiate this and stick on to this belong to a very minority group of people. They belong to all religions, this religion and that religion, but the vast majority are people who don't accept and who don't authorize this kind of violence. But somehow this feeds on to a lot of serves a lot of political purpose for these micro minority of people who try to sustain this thing. And with the advent of social media, the impression that the vast majority is like this is deliberately created in that space. So now the whole thing works in a very structured way. The main party which is pushing this is BJP, of course, and BJP as a political arm does everything, but they don't do this ground kind of activity. For that, they have a lot of para organizations like the
Right.
Hindu VHP and Hanuman Sena and all para organizations. The
Right.
para organizations indulge in all this traditionally doing all the ground activities, and then BJP supports them from the outside. And basically, every activity is done in such a way or raised to such a way there is a retaliatory action from the other side. And once it happens, the cycle keeps continuing. And then this whole aura that this entire communal thing is going on in that space is being thrusted on people. This is my observation. I seriously never found the majority of the people in coastal Karnataka being communal as such.
Right. I found it interesting. You spoke about how several students are going to Shaka, and in your article also you speak about Tamil Nadu, the situation over the last 3 years, how the number of students attending Shakas have increased. Tell me how you observe the situation right now. You particularly talk about till Jayalalithaa was around, and after her demise, how the situation has changed. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. J Jayalalithaa took a very conscious decision of not allowing RSS to spread their ground. As I have written in my article also, the first phase is always an organizational build-up. They do this silent build-up. I think from 2010 onwards, the RSS chakas have doubled, tripled in all places. And they have some focus areas, like West Bengal. And they have also made Tamil Nadu a focus area recently. They have started, and Kerala they are running the maximum number of shakas so that they want to capture it. So the number of shakas has increased, but in Tamil Nadu, I would say it is still not reached to the stage which they would like to reach because they are not finding much of attraction except the Kongu belt, except the Coimbatore belt. But even then, the way they keep continuously adapting to changes. They now start with yoga. They start with various other things which are acceptable to people. As I have also mentioned, they are now going to every house with a tambulam.
Yes.
Saying that just auspicious. Not so. They have all the tricks under their belt to they will try everything to reach out to people. So this will start growing. But Jayalalithaa had taken a very conscious decision that she will not allow this because most of these shakas happen in school campuses. And if you can just I think when you are questioning hijab wearing children to come to school, running shakas in school campuses is what we have to stop right now. I think that is the biggest issue which is happening. And all these schools are being converted with the connivance of government into pushing communal thoughts into people's mind. But Tamil Nadu has not reached the stage and it will resist.
So, if I understood correctly, you're saying that they're taking the cultural route to eventually gain political benefit out of it, and multiple organizations are operating at various levels. Is that an apt summarization?
RSS has always been there only. Their project is a political project. The route they take is culture and identity. They say seva and desh bhakti. Seva, they say so that all the reforms that they talk about is basically not for reforming the society, but to consolidate the majority.
Right.
So it's a political project. They are absolutely there in a political project, and a lot of people are now falling for it because we are not able to effectively stem it.
Right. Also, if you could just draw parallels of what's happening in the last 3 years, perhaps in Tamil Nadu, to what you've seen in Dakshina Kannada and other parts of Karnataka, perhaps. Are there similarities? Are there differences in how polarization and communalization essentially is taking place?
Yeah. In fact, one of that is the pan-India structure of developing shakas and other things. But in the last 1 year, especially in Tamil Nadu, they have exported a person who was an ex-IPS officer in Karnataka to Tamil Nadu to lead the BJP and to lead the communalization project. And this person has downloaded all these structures, all the schemes from coastal Karnataka, copybook. There's nothing new. So all the kind of dead body politics, forced conversion story, everything is imported from Karnataka. There's a very 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 solid match between what is happening in Karnataka and what is being done in Tamil Nadu. In fact, even the ground force, this person, Mr. Annamale, brings from Karnataka, and his
Right.
moral support is the MP with Tejasvi Surya, who has been communalizing the whole country in a big level. And so these new age boys have joined together with a very vigorous project, I suppose, to communalize South India. But I could very solidly say that Tamil Nadu will resist with the maximum. They are going to get the maximum response on the other side from Tamil Nadu, and it is not going to be that easy.
You also mentioned how fence sitters are being wooed various ways. So, apart from the tambulam and also, I think, propaganda material that is being reportedly handed out, what are the ways are the fence sitters being convinced to accept the Sangh BJP as an alternative in Tamil Nadu?
So this whole structure works with an aura of majority opinion, but that is not the majority opinion. The biggest problem in this whole thing is that the majority who thinks good, who wants good, they are forced to remain in silence.
Right.
It's not that they are made to act in a way; they are made to remain silent. That sphere of silence is the biggest criminal. And if that sphere of silence remains, then the minority community will start thinking the whole majority is like that. So they have been, how they force that silence is creating some violent events, creating some fear within the society that you will be called anti-majority, anti-Hindu or something. So that kind of activities are also thrown within the people so that they remain silent watching all this. So this is, in my opinion, the biggest thing to break. And if everybody in majority start talking that this is what is happening is bad, just talking, I think this it can be simply solved. It's not a major issue at all. So I think even their whole effort is to frame this question as a question between Hindus and Muslims or between Hindus and Christians. That is what RSS tries, that to frame the question like this. But this question is not essentially that. This question is essentially whether you like the idea of India, whether you are standing for the idea of India, which is pluralism, which is accepting and celebrating differences, or you are going to support the other side, which is absolutely against the idea of India. So
Right.
all people across the community who support the idea of India, who believe in pluralism, who celebrate differences. They have to understand the problem is not between Hindus and Muslims or RSS and Congress. It is about the idea of India and the people who don't like the idea of India.
Right. My last question before I let you go. I just want to know, you're a part of the ruling coalition. How is the Congress and the DMK working to counter all these steps politically and otherwise?
If you ask about Tamil Nadu, we are very clear ideologically where we stand. In fact, we see this threat very clearly. That includes the leaders of Congress Party, national leaders of the Congress Party, and also the leader of DMK. Have a very solid match in understanding that this is something which we have to oppose across the board. So ideologically, the parties have gelled together. Electorally, we are not even thinking electorally and who's going to win how many seats and all that. Right now, our fight is ideological, and we have recognized that, and we have
Mhm.
come to a platform that we will be fighting this in the coming future from that level. In that level, we gel very well together. And the current CM in Tamil Nadu is also very aware of the matter, and his entire posturing and the way he is communicating to people is very clear where he stands. So Tamil Nadu is not going to go down to all this, and I can assure that it will not happen.
Right. We will, of course, continue tracking the developments, and I thank you for your time and your
Thank you,
viewpoints.
Pooja.